Hi, welcome to Mixed Messages, a show where each episode we hear someone's personal mixed race experience. I'm your mixed race host, Sarah Donahue. And for those of you who are wondering, I'm Black and white. Now, please give a warm welcome to my very special guest, one of my favorite people, one of the best people in the world, Marcus Cleveland. Woo! Yay! Oh, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
Wonderful.
My pleasure. I like that you made a distinction in your intro
Oh, you know.
because we have to.
I am glad you said that because I am going to start this show off with the question every mixed race person loves.
Oh.
What are you?
Well, quite like you, my mother is European and my father is African.
I see. And do you get asked that all the time?
I think the older I get, no, because I just don't think it matters with my age. But when I was younger, all the time. Not in quite an elegant a way as you did it, but yeah, I remember being asked when I lived in Georgia, "What you?"
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, see, I didn't know you lived in Georgia.
Yeah,
What?
I lived in Georgia.
When?
This was before I moved up to Charleston. I lived with my dad and his family for 7 months.
Now, when was this? After? Okay, you grew up in West Virginia, yes? Tell me your story. You were born. Let's go back.
I was. It's documented. I was born.
Mhm. Okay, got that.
I was born in Maine. My parents were in the Air Force. Um, After living in Maine for a year, they were stationed in South Carolina, in Charleston, South Carolina. So I lived there until I was, I want to say 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved to Huntington. But I consider myself a Southerner more
Yeah.
than anything. But not the West Virginia Southern, like the actual Southern. Um,
Yeah. Although West Virginia is, I would say, pretty Southern in a lot of ways.
in a lot of ways, yeah, you're very right. Um, so I lived up here, where I lived in Huntington until my first ninth grade, until the ninth grade.
Oh.
And then things in the family got a little weird, and I ended up moving down to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed there for the summer and the first half of my ninth grade year. And by the time I moved back up here, it was the second half of my ninth grade year. And I don't think we met until my 10th grade year. Yeah.
That sounds
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean that's a very rough overview,
I
but
appreciate it. Yeah. So now you lived with just your dad.
no.
Okay.
When I was living with my dad,
Uh-huh.
he had his girlfriend and they had 3 kids. Well, she had two. No, yeah, she had come in with a girl, and then they had two while they were together. So it was me, my dad, his girlfriend, and the 3 kids.
Okay.
And I didn't live with them for very long, actually. I ended up moving into my grandma's house because my grandma lived in Illinois.
Your dad's mom or your
Yeah,
mom?
my
Okay.
dad's mom. Yeah,
So was your dad's girlfriend Black?
yeah,
Okay. So you have half siblings that are not, in the traditional sense, mixed race.
absolutely right.
What was that like when you were there living with them? Do you think people went ahead and thought you were Black? Did they?
No, I don't think they did. But I think because I lived in a predominantly Black neighborhood when I lived in Georgia,
Mm.
I think what shielded me a lot was that a lot of people knew who my dad was, and I looked a lot like him.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they were always like, even teachers at the school, they're like, "You Donald's boy?" I'm like,
Oh,
like everybody just knew. The
yeah.
only difference was I was many shades lighter than him.
Okay.
That's the
Same
only
to my
difference.
dad. Like I'm a clone. I look just like my dad. Yes. I'll show you.
I see both in you.
You do? Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What's weird is when you look at your dad and say, I look just like him, but then you look at your mom and say, I also look just like her.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird. And I do that.
It is. When you moved to West Virginia, you were with your mom, who was white.
Right.
And was that a big shift? Was it a big shift for you?
It it was different. It was different. I remember when I was in middle school, when I still lived in Huntington, West Virginia, this girl who was also mixed asked me why I didn't act black. And that was real confusing for me. I didn't think I acted any particular way. But when I lived in Georgia and I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood and went to a largely black school, it felt more like they just knew I wasn't black, but they couldn't place exactly what I was. But I
Uh-huh.
don't think it necessarily mattered as much.
Okay.
But when I moved back up here, my mom kind of, I don't think she realized what West Virginia, some areas of West Virginia were about. So I moved to a predominantly white, well, actually almost entirely white, yeah, rural part of West Virginia where one, they didn't ask me what I was because they had already assumed that I was black
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not white, and that's obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that's
they
what
just
I
assumed
was.
I was black.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole set of grievances that came with that part. Um, but yeah, it felt like I was more um, alienated
Mm-hmm.
because of what they assumed I was.
Well, elaborate on that. You said there were more grievances that came with that. Like what?
Yeah.
Are there certain episodes, stories you remember that stand out to you?
Um, well, I was always kind of on the verge of fighting with people, but I'm not, never been particularly violent. But I remember one time I was in math class and these guys who were sitting in front of me said they were going to go inward knocking. So in my head, because I think that might have been one of the first times I'd ever had that word used at me like that. I
Oh,
thought it was like a ding
N-word. I thought
dong.
you said inward. I'm like, what is that?
Oh, and
Don't know. N-word. Okay, got you, got you.
I thought it was like ding dong ditch, but it turns out that they were talking about beating me up.
Uh-huh.
But because I didn't like the word, I've never been very fond of it. I went to the teacher. Like it was low key a spectacle
Mm.
because I've never cared much. Um, I asked the teacher what their names were to their face, and he told me. And I sat back down, and then I went to the principal afterwards. And of course, nothing was done because, as we know, racism is quite systemic.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just me probably being sensitive in their eyes.
Okay. Yeah.
And when so I got very aggressive, very angry, probably my 11th, half my 11th through my entire senior year. So like not physically aggressive, but confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a problem telling people I didn't like them. And usually if I didn't like them, it's because they were racist. Like
Yeah.
I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Well, I was brought into the guidance counselor's office once, and um, I told her what the issue was, why I was being so negative, and she asked me why I couldn't be the bigger or better person. I'm like, because that's not my role.
Excellent. And you said this, you were 15, 16, you're saying.
16, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't. I don't have it in mind to maybe to be better to people than they are to me. The part in there that's missing, of course, is that I'd gotten so angry and so depressed that I spent a couple of months in a um what's that place called?
Team Highland. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um which was officially my gateway into a whole new world.
Tell me
But
about that. As in, what do you mean?
it was a different group of people that I kind of ended up associating with after that. Um
Mhm.
exactly. Um I think I never had any misconceptions about people who had mental illness. For a long time, I thought mine was probably more situational than anything else, but that's a different story.
Well,
Um,
not or not.
um, but I ended up being very thankful for the people that I ended up getting to meet because of being there.
That is not my story with Highland, but that is another story.
Well, to qualify all of that, I was going to be let out like probably 2 or 3 weeks earlier than I was,
Mhm.
but I didn't want to go back to that school. I couldn't go back there. I mean, I had that. I had an alcoholic mom.
Mhm.
Uh, Um, it was just not ideal. It was very depressing. So,
Yeah. And I see by that time I went to Highland because I was crazy. And as far as you're saying, situational, I don't know, chicken and egg, what came first?
yeah, yeah,
There were so many factors, and definitely racism was a big factor. Uh, yeah, but I remember us bonding because we were mixed in West Virginia, which is
yeah.
not
At the time,
at the time, not very common. And also, oh, you're depressed? You have depression? I have depression. Yay!
yeah, there were a lot of common denominators there, and I was thinking about it earlier. Like when we clicked hard and fast.
Yes, yes. And no one comes in because we were different but the same.
Exactly,
Yeah.
the exact same kind of different,
Yeah.
and the exact same group of people,
Yeah.
which led to some odd ideas about our relationship.
Oh God, that's right. We were like, if you want to think it, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely let it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Oh
should explain
man.
that though, because it sounds very, very nefarious, but
You
it wasn't.
explain it. You're the guest. You
I'm
explain.
the guest. Well, people assumed, even though we were in more of a forward thinking group, people thought that because both you and I were not white, that we must be related.
Oh God. Yeah.
So we played on it. What was it? Our dad was the same, but we had different moms, right?
I forgot all about that. Oh my God. You're right. You're right. Yeah, but why not play on it? It was
I
fun.
mean, I think it helped because we clicked and we're very comfortable with each other.
I want to talk about your mom. Your mom is a Trump supporter. Is that right?
Yes. She was a Trump supporter. Before she was a Trump supporter, she was Tea Party. Um, before that, she was, well, what's it? New Saved Christian.
Oh. Oh.
And before that, she was essentially a lot lizard without the title. I do think I love my mom, but I don't think I like my mom. I think that on top of these new interests of hers, her ego forces her to think that I would feel the same way she does because she knows I'm a relatively intelligent person. So she tries to have these conversations. after I told her she's the problem with America, um, it got to the point where I was like, we're never going to see eye to eye on this. So we don't need to have this conversation because I'm not sure how you understand the world, but I think we just experience it different. And we won't ever see eye to eye on this. And it was actually right now, especially I think she's probably clamped onto this whole QAnon conspiracy bull crap. But
Yes.
because we've already had so many discussions about how we are not going to see eye to eye on this, she's kind of stopped talking to me for the past year.
Stop talking to you, period.
Like, no, just I'm not the person she talks to anymore. And that's fine with me. Because what she wants to talk about, she can't talk about with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Does she understand that she's racist? Does she understand that this equates to racism?
no. Actually, let me tell you, there's this other thing that happened a couple of months ago. My mom and I were talking. This might actually be the last time we actually had a phone conversation. She was telling me she doesn't allow racists in her house. So I sat there for a minute. I was like, but now her husband is also Southern West Virginian, I believe. I don't think he graduated high school, even though I don't think education and racism are exclusive. But he's very much racist. I was like, but mom, your husband's racist. And she's like, no, he isn't. I'm like, mom, I remember the message he left on my phone when I was like 24, 25 years old. What are you talking about? He called me the N-word.
I'm going to need to know what that message was.
Oh, it was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was him in the background talking some pretty greasy stuff. And I didn't pay attention to it initially, but a friend of mine heard it and I listened back to the message because it's back when my mom was still in this transition between being a non-functioning alcoholic to being born again Christian. That's what I was looking for. Okay. So there were times where I would get calls from her where she was obviously drunk, but they were starting to lessen and now she doesn't drink at all. But I heard, I was like, oh. So I'm not sure because this was so long ago. I don't remember if I ever brought it to my mom's attention, but or if I made a deal out of it. You know what I mean? Because I think at that time, while my mom was still very much an alcoholic or an active alcoholic, I didn't associate with her very much anyway.
Yeah.
So I just reminded her of that, and she just kind of trailed off. Like I can't. I think she might be mad that I won't let her be brand new. But
it's amazing to me how I heard this a while ago, and I always think of it. The worst thing you can call a racist is a racist.
They can't handle it. They can't handle it.
I mean, and this guy, this is, I don't want to say peak racism, but yeah, you're calling. And also with your mom, he just called her son that.
Yeah.
And
but okay, on topic, my mom was already pretty lax in that area. She dated this guy when I was in middle school. This was before I went to Georgia. Because I guess he had kind of given her the impression that he was not okay with Black people, my mom told him that my sister and I were Native American.
Wow.
So, and I think combining all that, it probably affected my self-worth a bit.
You think? Marcus, I did not know that. And see, Wow, that takes it to a new level, because I remember people asking me to pretend I was Native American so I could hang out with them, because their parents would not, and I'm like 12, 13, so I go along with it. I'm like, okay. Or they're like, if they ask you, just don't say you're black. Don't say you're black, because that's the worst thing you could say. And they won't let us be friends. And so of course I'm like, well, I want to be friends, you know. But to have that happen in my home, to have my parents say you need to pretend to be this, is just, I that's a lot.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. Do
I
you
think at this point,
oh,
I would probably be more offended if somebody told me just to not say I'm black, because I don't consider myself black.
mm-mm.
Like, there's a commonality there, I think. We have some shared experiences, but I've never thought that what I experience is the same as what black people experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say it's worse, it's just different, you know? Because, and I'm sure you might experience this a little bit. We get it from black people, we also get it from white people. I mean, it's very subtle racism where you're invited to the cookout but don't bring anything, you know?
The racism I've received, or the hate and the what are you, and has been from white people. Now, and I identify as black mixed.
Hmm.
I think you're right. I think there are some things we can relate to, some things we can't, as far as the black experience.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons for this show. This is the mixed experience, which isn't really talked about enough.
Right.
I do think a big commonality, though, is being called the N-word and racism.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. But
I'm
this,
100% on.
this, what you're just explaining, what we were just talking about your mom saying you're Native American to someone she's dating, that is a lot, and that is very much a mixed thing.
You're right. You're right.
Now your sister's older.
Yeah.
And did you talk about that? Did you say, and have you since then? Like,
My sister's not thoughtful enough for that conversation. Um, there's a delusion there that prevents me from having real conversations with her. The interesting thing about, if we were to go by acting one way or another,
mhm,
um, she definitely acts more black than me, but she doesn't date black guys. Can't, cannot, will not.
cannot.
She says she's not comfortable around black people. When I try to talk to her about things that matter, I just get this screen, this facade, and I don't know if there's anything underneath it. I think you were the only person I could ever really actually talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Even though on my dad's side of the family, I had one of my aunts had two mixed kids. Um, yeah, that was it. As far as I can remember, there are probably some more now, but at the time, um, two of my cousins were mixed. But I was also like 14, 15 years old, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think in those terms because I didn't really start to think about it until I moved back up here, because it there was never any hostility about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, I'm being threatened because of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, you were a person who thought about it too because you had experienced it, and probably in some ways my mentor in that area, because I was new to kind of really experiencing that, or at least being in a position to really think about what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
One, to have to be something that you're all the time kind of misinterpreted as, like somebody saying that you should act like you're Native American and not Black. When, like, for me, like I said, I don't consider myself Black.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mixed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm as much Black as I am white.
Mm-hmm.
I, but then you're wanting me to say, not only am I not this thing, which I don't think I am, you want me to act like I'm this thing I know I'm not. I mean, that affects, I think, how people feel about themselves, because no matter what we think we are, we're actively treated like we're not that.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you about something you said, not here, but when we were talking about doing this, you said you're often fetishized for being mixed.
Not necessarily being mixed, more so because it's just like the people here. They
Uh-huh.
don't think I'm mixed, they think I'm Black.
Okay, got you.
And there's people of color in the LGBTQ community are in a very awful position sometimes, I think, because, like, I don't, for me personally, I've decided that I can't date anyone that cannot share my history,
Mm-hmm.
that can't sympathize or even begin to see, like, my perspective on things. Because being a person of color, we do still check the room. Is it just
Oh,
me? Then I can't be here.
the scan. The
Yeah.
scan.
Hmm.
It's just me. And now, if it is just me, what are they going to say? What are
Exactly.
they about to say?
We can't just be us. We have to be whatever they need us, or whatever they think we are.
Yeah. And see, with the what are you question, if I say I'm Black and white, what else? No. For me, there's always a follow-up question. Or you look so exotic. Ooh.
Oh.
And it's like, uh-huh, uh-huh.
Did you see that short interview where they asked Rashida Jones? They said she looked like she had been in the sun or something.
No.
Oh, that was the funniest thing ever. She was like, I'm kind of ethnic. And
Yeah.
that's, you like, if you don't have the features that tell everybody exactly what you are, like
Mhm.
Rashida Jones's features are kind of Anglo.
Yeah.
So if they see color in her cheeks, she must have had a tan.
Yeah.
No, that's God's gift.
Yeah, exactly.
Rashida Jones has 100% been everything to me from day one, because she never pretended, ever.
Yeah.
And we need that. That's our role model. That's what we need. People, I
Absolutely.
mean, there are mixed people who are very famous,
Yep.
who have done very well. I
Mhm.
mean, what do we got? Mariah Carey.
Gracie Ellis Ross,
Yes. Rashida Jones.
Trevor Noah.
Yes.
Bar- Barack.
It's a very convenient thing when he's the first Black president, when,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But, I'll allow it.
The thing about Barack being it's like you said before, you're either Black or white. It's America. You're Black or white.
Hmm.
That's why the what are yous happens so much, because people are so preoccupied by race.
So preoccupied,
Yeah.
100% right. If they cannot figure out what traits to ascribe to you based on your skin tone, then they can't have it. They cannot have it.
No. And because I grew up with my mom and dad both, and I remember my mom saying, "You're considered Black. We're a Black family. It doesn't matter." And I'm just like, "But why?" And she's like, "Because that's how people are seeing it. That's what it is." And it was, and it is. Especially, I think, especially So I was born and raised in West Virginia, and I got the what are yous and being called the N-word at a very young age. And so, yeah, I guess when you came, I was like, let me tell you how it is. Then I remember when I was a teenager coming to New York and moving to New York, and it was just like night and day, night and day.
I always wondered about that. Was it that people, I don't think in New York, and tell me if I'm wrong, you weren't being accused of being black, were you?
Accused?
Because it's an accusation to the people who treat you like you're black. They're using that as a way to be better than you.
Oh, yeah. By white people. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a way to make sure they have their foot on your neck.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was saying about the room scan, because I will say in West Virginia, people are pretty loud and proud to be racist.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are clearly a lot who aren't, but in New York, what I realized was if people, and what I've always happens, the scan, a lot of times white people think I'm white. So that's when if I do the scan in a room and there's only white people, I'm like, I'm holding it in. I'm like, all right, what are you about to say? Because you think you're among your own. What's about to happen? And then I go through, well, do I wait for them to say it? Because it's going to happen. Do I wait for them to say something? What am I going to say when they say it? Am I going to surprise them? Am I going to be hostile? Or am I going to right off the bat, let them know I am black?
You're like, hi, I'm Sarah, I'm mixed. Nice to meet
you. Pretty much. And it's just like, yeah. So that's the scan that happens all the time. And then if I see another person of color, it's just like, okay, we've got each, like there.
Oh yeah.
There's an up nod.
Just like.
Yeah. Okay. We good. Yeah, totally.
That gets me and you if something happens.
Yeah. I think we're good. I think there's a lot of other things we can get into, but let's make this, I think we should end here.
Okay.
What do you think? Tell me if there's anything you want to get into, anything else you want to get into.
No, I've enjoyed it. I've been trying to act smarter than I am for this. So
oh, please. I don't know how please. You're perfect.
There are definitely issues. It's always the tip of the iceberg because we have shared experiences, but there's so many.
There are so many stories and so many pieces and so many experiences, which is why this is going to be an ongoing show and an ongoing conversation. Anyway, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Words for the children, for the people who are watching. You want anyone to know something about you?
About me?
Something else? Anything. What show you like? What you're doing tomorrow?
I mean, not to brag, but I did take tomorrow off. So I'll be doing ceiling repair.
Ooh, excellent. Well, sounds good to me. A day off is a day off.
Amen. I'm going to sleep all the way in.
Nice. All right. Well, that is our show. Thank you for joining me and my very, 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 very best friend, Marcus Cleveland, on this first episode of Mixed Messages. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want in the future. Do you have any ideas? And let me know if you want to be a guest. All right. I will see y'all later. Bye-bye.